Well, good morning and welcome to the North Affair podcast, Conversations Without Barriers. I'm your host, Doug from Ontario, Canada. Hope everybody had a good weekend here across here in Ontario. Yesterday was Family Day. It was a day off, but not every province recognizes this day. But I hope everybody had a good weekend. Everybody's back to the grindstone. I'm back out here behind the microphone. Yes, I've been periodically putting up some shows, 20-minute segments. I get them generated. I just put in the information, and it generates a short podcast. And thank you for listening to those. I hope you found them informative. Today, the rhetoric and reality, the Canada-United States relationship in the age of political noise. Every few years, a familiar story resurfaces. A political figure steps to the microphone. Trump looks into the camera and declares that Canada, one of the United States' closest allies, is somehow taking advantage of America. That Canada is unfair. That Canada is difficult. That Canada is the worst country to deal with. And yet, in the same breath, the same figure, Trump, will praise a trade agreement with Canada as the best deal ever. Then you know which one that is, the one he did back in 2018, 2019, renegotiated the NAFTA deal. The North American Free Trade Agreement. Now it's called the Canada-United States-Mexico Agreement. Trump praised it as the best deal ever. Two narratives, one relationship, and a widening gap between rhetoric and reality. This is an investigation into the gap, how it's formed, why it persists, and what it means for the future of the Canada and United States partnership or relationship. Political rhetoric is not new. But in recent years, the volume, intensity, and emotional charge of the rhetoric has shifted dramatically. Statements about allies, including Canada, have become a sharper, more extreme, and more contradictory. One day, Canada is valued partner. The next is the worst country to deal with. These statements are not grounded in data. They're not grounded in the long history of cooperation between the two countries. They're not grounded in the economic reality of one of the world's most integrated trading relationships. They are grounded in something else entirely: political utility. The language is maximalist. Everything is the best, the worst, the biggest, the most unfair. The goal is not to inform, the goal is to frame a narrative, one in which the United States is perpetually being taken advantage of. And only one person can fix it. This is not analysis, it's positioning. And Canada, for reasons we'll explore, has become a convenient target. Well, let's see there, Mr. Porcupine. What do we got here? Take a second and see what you wrote up here. So you think that the United States is getting to add 4 of your provinces, and they're requesting so Canada can get new EV cars, and Trump is not going for that, so that prime minister is in trouble. He has nothing to offer globalists. You think that Canada is getting to add 4 of your provinces? Well, I don't know about that. I know Alberta, they got this little separatist party going on, and Quebec has always had a separatist party going on. Canada's deal, when it came, first of all, you know, back we'll back this up because when you talk about this EV, right? When you talk about these EV cars, are you talking about the deal that Canada and the Chinese government uh, came to an agreement with? Because back when Biden was president of the United States and Trudeau was the prime minister of Canada, Biden imposed 100% tariffs on EVs. Well, no, it does. It does because if you're talking about the new EV cars, Biden is in this conversation because you got to understand back when he was president of the United States, he imposed 100% tariffs on the EVs of China. Trudeau, the prime minister, followed suit. Right? China reacts to Canada and China puts it like an 85 or 90% on soya, tariffs on soya. And then fast forward to now, all Mark Carney did is went to the Chinese government and he says, we'll put the tariffs back down to where they were, and you lower the tariffs on the soya. And that was the deal. There's no trade deal between Canada and China. And that, Trump, he claims that there's a free trade deal between Canada and China. There is not. There's not a free trade deal between the United States and China. No, he hasn't got himself boxing with China, and the province. No, we're not. We're not boxing with China. We're not boxing with China whatsoever. Right? We have a deal. Right? And what he went to Davos and he announced all that. Well, yeah, first of all, Prime Minister actually talked a lot about different things in Davos as well. You know, um, calling out without even naming names. The economic turmoils as well, right? We have a deal. That's all it is. It's a deal. Like we have a deal. We have a trade deal with the United States and Mexico. That's the Canada-United States-Mexico agreement. We don't have a trade deal with China, and neither does the United States. We buy products from China, but it's not a trade deal. So getting back to this narrative, this political rhetoric, this political noise. To understand the gap between rhetoric and reality, we need to look at the facts, the documented, measurable, viable facts. Canada and the United States share the world's largest undefended border in the world, one of the largest bilateral trading relationships on Earth, deeply integrated supply chains, shared security, intelligence, and defense frameworks, a century of diplomatic cooperation. And every day, nearly $3 billion in goods and services cross the border. Millions of jobs in both countries depend on this relationship. And when the United States renegotiated the NAFTA deal, the North American Free Trade Agreement, this was back in 2018 and 2019, Trump's first administration. This agreement that became Canada, United States, Mexico agreement The process was not a hostile standoff. It was a structured negotiation involving teams of diplomats, economics, and legal experts from all three countries. Trump praised it as the best deal ever. It was the best deal ever that he's ever made with Canada, United States, and Mexico. The final agreement preserved the core of NAFTA. It updated rules for modern industries. It included concessions from all sides, and it was signed with public praise from all three governments, including Trump. This is the reality: stable, cooperative, mutually beneficial. So, why does the rhetoric sound so different? On one hand, Canada is described as the worst country to deal with, and he has just said that recently. Trump has just said that recently. A deal negotiated with Canada is described as the best trade deal ever back in 2019. Donald Trump. Both statements come from the same person. Both statements are delivered with the same confidence, and both statements cannot be true at the same time. Yeah, I'll pause here for a second. So, what's my so what your so that your providence? Well, what's a providence? Wants to leave, and once one goes, Canada is done. Trust me, Prime Minister thinks it's not going anywhere. First of all, and it's a province. Alberta is not going anywhere. You got to understand Canadians' political landscape first and foremost. You have to understand the indigenous. You have to understand the indigenous treaties from one province to the other, right from coast to coast to coast in Canada, right? Alberta's not going anywhere. Alberta will remain in Canada. It'll remain a sovereign a sovereign province inside a sovereign country, right? So there's more than just saying somebody wants to separate. Quebec did this back a couple decades ago. Tried the same thing. Quebec is still Canada. Is still part of Canada. A sovereign province inside a sovereign country. It's important to understand the political landscape. We are not the United States. We have an entire different political landscape. It's not as easy as you think it sounds. I'll tell you that right now. So, getting back to this, both statements delivered with the same confidence, and both statements cannot be true at the same time. This is not an accident, it's a pattern. Well, yeah, things are different now than nuclear plant that your Canadian company that came to the United States to cut a deal. You cannot protect yourself. The United States has taken over the hemisphere. The United States hasn't taken over anything. The United States can't take over a hemisphere. The Western Hemisphere does not belong to the United States. The United States, you can't buy it, you can't rent it, you can't own it, you can't do anything with it, right? And a matter of fact, I'm not going to get into discussion with you, Porcupine. I mean, you're a good listener and stuff like that, but Canada can protect itself, right? I mean, you're hilarious. You are just absolutely hilarious, right? You really are. I mean, Canada and the United States is, has been friends for for hundreds of years, right? You're hilarious. You're absolutely the relationship between Canada and the United States, and not just with government stuff like that, with the people. You're hilarious. You're absolutely hilarious. Now, getting back to what I was talking about, facts, porcupine. When political figures want leverage, they frame allies as unfair. When they want credit, they frame agreements as historic victories, right? So the agreement is an historic victories, as Trump would claim, the best deal ever, the Kuzma, the Canada, United States, Mexico agreement back in 2019. So that target changes, the tone changes, the narrative changes, but the strategy remains the same. This is not about Canada, it's about the usefulness of conflict. Because emotional narratives are powerful, because grievances are politically effective, because conflict energizes supporters, because simplicity, even when inaccurate, is easier to communicate than nuance. And because Canada occupies a unique place in the American political imagination, Canada is close enough to be familiar, safe enough to criticize without geopolitical risk, integrated enough to claim unfairness, and symbolic enough to use as foil. Now, moving forward here, the Gordie Howe Bridge. I'm sure, Fax Porcupine, you've been hearing what's going on with this. It's slated to open, fully constructed. Few examples illustrate the gap between rhetoric and reality more clearly than the Gordie Howe International Bridge, a major infrastructure project, a critical trade corridor, a symbol of cross border cooperation, and a project funded entirely by Canada, including the United States port of entry, because the United States would not allocate the money. Back in 2019, it was like 2019, 2017 actually, uh, Trump praised it, right? He endorsed it with this Gordie Howe Bridge. Canada spent $4.6 billion, fully paid for by Canada. And get this, Michigan, they're a partner in this with no investment. Canada will collect the tolls until that 4.6 billion is paid off. And Michigan gets to collect half the tolls when that is done. So this project was here's the other thing though too that people don't understand. Two unions, workers on both sides of the border, American workers, Canadian steel, American steel, fully funded by Canada, built this bridge. This is not speculation, this is documented fact. Canada stepped in because Michigan's legislator refused to approve funding. Canada paid because the United States federal government declined to contribute. Canada financed the entire project with the expectations of recovering costs through toll revenues. And yet the rhetoric suggests the opposite, that Canada somehow took advantage of the United States because Donald Trump turned around and said he's going to block the opening of the Gordie Howe Bridge until the United States is treated with respect, and that the United States gets to own at least one half of it. And that we give Canada everything. And that is just falsely it's just falsely facted. Now I'll tell you what happened. The Maroon family, I like to call them the moron family, who owns the Ambassador Bridge, is a Trump donor. And they've been trying to block this project from the get-go, the moron family. See, they make millions and millions of dollars every single day on tolls. Trucks and cars crossing the Ambassador Bridge on a daily basis. The Moran family decided to go to Lutnick. Lutnick goes to the President of the United States. Trump comes out. He wants to block the bridge from opening until somehow you're fully compensated. Compensated with what? Somehow you get to own half of something you never paid for? Doesn't even make sense. The deal is between the state of Michigan and Canada. I mean, our prime minister, had to call up the president of the United States and give him a 101 lesson on economics. It explained to him with crayons in a piece of paper that this is how this happened. Canada paid for the bridge. Michigan has a stake in the bridge. Canada will collect the tolls until that $4.6 million is paid. Michigan then gets to collect tolls on their side, so they get to own half that bridge with no investment. It's a pretty good deal. See, the trade between Canada and the United States is not a zero-sum game. It is a deeply integrated system in which goods cross the border multiple times before reaching consumers. A car assembled in Ontario may contain parts from Michigan, Ohio, Kentucky, Tennessee. A plane built in Washington may include components manufactured in Quebec and Manitoba. Energy flows both directions. Agriculture flows in both directions. Investment flows in both directions. This is not exploitation, it's interdependence. The Canada-United States-Mexico Agreement did not change that and reinforced it. And yet the rhetoric continues. Political rhetoric does not stay in political spaces. It filters into public perception, like yours. Shapes how people understand their neighbors. It influences how communities see themselves. When a political figure repeatedly describes Canada as unfair or difficult, and that's Trump, it creates tension where none existed. It undermines trust. It distorts reality. and it distracts from the real issues, the challenge that actually require cooperation: border modernization, supply chain resilience, energy transition, security coordination, economic competitiveness. These are the areas where Canada and the United States must work together. These are the areas where the rhetoric becomes noise. So the pattern is clear. Criticize the partner, create a sense of grievance, which Donald Trump does every fucking day, negotiate the deal, declare victory, return to criticism when politically useful. This is not diplomacy, it's a performance. In Canada, despite its stability, reliability, and long history of cooperation, becomes a recurring character in this performance because he's always turning around and he's always criticizing Canada for something. He'll say one day Canada is charging tariffs on farmers of the U.S. farmers for the dairy products come into Canada. We are not charging you tariffs on your agriculture coming into Canada. I mean, Donald Trump doesn't even understand his own trade deal that he made back in 2018 and 2019. Part of that deal was allowing more product of the dairy products coming into Canada. There is a ceiling that if the dairy products coming into Canada from the United States goes above that ceiling, then there's a tariff. But it has never reached that ceiling. So there is no tariffs. But Donald Trump wants you to believe that there's a tariff when there is not. The other day he says Canada's the worst country. They are the worst country to deal with. And yet back in 2018, 2019, you sit down at the table with Canada and the United States to hammer out a new deal between Canada, the United States, and Mexico, and then praise the deal as the best deal ever. And somehow we're the difficult one. See, the consequences of this pattern are not abstract. And when rhetoric distorts reality, it becomes harder for policymakers to communicate the truth. It becomes harder for the public to understand the relationship. It becomes harder for both countries to focus on shared priorities. And it becomes easier for misinformation to fill the gaps. And Donald Trump puts misinformation and disinformation out there every single day, every single night when he tweets, every single moment he opens up his mouth and puts his own foot in it. Canada and the United States do not benefit from this. Their economies do not benefit. Their workers do not benefit. Their communities do not benefit. The only beneficiary is the narrative itself. The Canada United States relationship is one of the most successful partnerships in modern history. It is built on cooperation, shared values, and mutual benefit until Trump steps into the fucking picture. It's not defined by rhetoric. It's not defined by political performance. It's not defined by the loudest voice in the room. It is defined by the work, the daily, practical, often invisible work of two countries that rely on each other. And that work continues regardless of the noise. In an age of political extremes, the truth can feel quiet, but it is still there, steady, documented, and measurable. The rhetoric may rise and fall, but the reality remains. Now, Trump said that he will not allow this bridge to open until the United States is fully compensated for everything we have given them, meaning Canada. Given us what? He's saying, I will not allow the bridge to open until the United States is fully compensated for everything we have given Canada, right? Because when you look at the actual record, the claim doesn't line up with how the Gordie Howe International Bridge was funded, built, or governed. What the United States contributed financially, these are documented facts. The United States did not fund the bridge. The United States did not fund the U.S. port of entry. The United States did not fund the United States Custom Plaza. The United States did not fund the land acquisition. All of it was paid for by Canada through the Windsor Detroit Bridge Authority and Canadian Crown corporations. This wasn't a secret. It wasn't controversial. It was the only way the project could move forward. The Michigan's legislature refused to approve funding. Congress declined to allocate money. Canada stepped in so the project wouldn't die. So what did the United States give Canada in terms of money? Nothing. In terms of land, well, Michigan, the United States provided land on the American side. But that's standard for any international crossing. Canada provided land on the Canadian side. We don't own the land on the American side. We built the customs building, but that's American soil. It's not owned by Canada, as Levitt, the press secretary, claimed that, Canada owns the American side and the Canadian side. Well, we do not. In terms of regulatory cooperation, both countries coordinated border customs and environmental approvals. Again, standard for any binational project. But in terms of financial contribution, the thing Trump is implying, there is no evidence of the United States giving Canada anything that Canada now owes compensation for. And why this claim doesn't match the record. This is where the forensic part matters. The official agreements show Canada pays the full cost up front. Canada recovers the full cost through tolls. The United States pays nothing. Michigan's paying nothing. The state of Michigan is paying nothing, but at the end of the day, when the tolls are collected in Canada to cover the $4.6 billion cost of the bridge, then Michigan can collect the tolls on the Michigan side. They get free half the bridge. So Canada pays the cost up front. Canada recovers the cost through the tolls. The United States pays nothing. The United States gets a brand new port of entry at no cost to American taxpayers. That's not Canada taken from the U.S. That's Canada subsidizing a major American infrastructure asset. So when someone says the United States must be compensated, the natural question is exactly the one I asked. Compensate for what? Because the documented answer is there's nothing to compensate. Trump thinks that the United States should show one half of the bridge when you didn't pay any goddamn money into it. It's ridiculous. All this rhetoric every single day, every single morning, the world has to wake up and listen to the bureaucratic bullshit coming out of the United States government and right from the White House. Because somehow Donald Trump's got a beef to pick with everybody. Blames everybody. Claims everybody owes the United States. Calls Canada the worst country to deal with. And yet somehow the United States is being treated unfairly. I don't even know where the fuck that even comes from. It's absolutely ridiculous. And every day we got to wake up to that bullshit. Every day there's something new. Maybe he just wants to give the news media outlets something to talk about. I have no idea. But I do know this, that Gordie Howe Bridge will open. And the Maroon family, they can just fuck off. Because it's not the only crossing. That Windsor, Detroit, Ambassador Bridge is not the only bridge. You have the tunnel, the Windsor Detroit tunnel. You have Sarnia Port Huron crossing. You have Niagara crossing. You have the Buffalo crossing. This bridge, Gordie Howe Bridge, is just another international bridge. Truckers can go to Port Huron. We can boycott that Ambassador Bridge. Cars can use the tunnel every single day. It's not owned by this moron family. Neither is the Port Huron in Sarnia Bridge. It's not owned by the moron family. So if this dickhead wants to create rhetoric and create friction, well, we got other crossings we can use, and we can just boycott the Ambassador Bridge altogether. He's had a monopoly for decades. Takes in millions a day, millions of dollars a day on tolls. A monopoly. You're thinking that's only going to be the international crossing forever. Well, it's not. We have other ways of crossing into the United States. See, we use the Ambassador Bridge because if you're going south, that's the best bridge to use. If you're going to go north, well, you can use Sarnia, Port Huron, but then you can always run the 94 back through Detroit, and then connect to the 75 south. It's about the same timeline. I mean, if I leave London to go to Windsor Detroit crossing, it takes me 2 hours. If I cross over into Port Huron from where I live, it takes me an hour, but then it's still another hour to Detroit. So the time's the same. But truckers, they can use the Sarnia Port Huron crossing and boycott the Ambassador Bridge altogether. So one way or the other, the Moran family's fucked. And the rhetoric coming out of the United States is getting old. We know Donald Trump is just a pathological liar. He was born that way. The whole damn Trump family was born that way. Corrupt. I don't know how Donald Trump complained that he's the best businessman ever and stuff like that. He's got, 8 or 9 bankruptcies? He's bankrupt every one of his businesses. He's bankrupting the United States. It's not just Canada boycotting the United States. It's other countries boycotting the United States by not going to the United States. Your tourism is suffering immensely. It's not losing millions, it's losing billions in the tourist industry in the United States. And that's mostly coming from Canada because we're your next door neighbor. So Trump can keep it up because we'll just keep boycotting. But I got to go. But I'm sure you have to go to their Facts Porcupine. It's nice to have you on the show. It is. You're hilarious. Till the next time we meet, this is the North Affair podcast, Conversation Without Barriers. I'm your host, Doug, from Ontario, Canada. Thank you for joining me. Have a good week. Thanks for coming out.